Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 410 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast all about low-powered shotguns in Canada, recorded November 27th, 2023.
Say we're almost running out of calibers, aren't we?
Yeah, almost. We need your help to support Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 an episode. You can show that you're not a communist by buying a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit the Canadian Patriot Podcast homepage, CanadianPatriotPodcast.com, and follow the link on the right. Now our favorite segment of the show, the Patriot Challenge, and what are we drinking? Ian?
Well, it's a bit of a sad panda day. For a couple of reasons. I'm just drinking tea and water today, so unfortunately double fisting, not in a good way here. And well, there's reasons for that, of course. I'm reloading after the show, but also still trying to work off that COVID-20 that kind of latched onto my body. And yeah, part of that whole mass reduction thing is the Patriot Challenge. Here I am. So yeah, it's actually, I think it's tougher to actually face the news articles without drinking because, you know, government tends to make you want to drink.
It's true. It is a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, it is easier to read the articles, but it is harder to get through them.
While staying sober.
Yeah.
As far
But
as the Patriot Challenge goes, well, credit where credit's due. The company I work for actually installed a gym at the workplace. So as of December 5th,
that's
we are
good.
free access 24/7 to a gym. So looking forward to that. But in the interim, still doing my daily exercise, usually consisting of morning walks and choring around the farm. And as far as the skills been practicing, well, reloading.
Nice. There you go. So did they install the gym at the same time as they put the female hygiene products into the other bodied female bathroom? Is that the
Okay,
correct term?
no priorities, Gavin. The feminine
Oh,
projects went in way before then.
okay. I just want to make sure that they've got everything
Yeah.
sorted out. Yeah, perfect.
Well,
Well,
being fit is one thing, but you got to make sure that you're not racist. That's more important.
yeah, it's true. That's true. All right. Well, I guess I am drinking. What did I pour in this? I believe it's Gentleman Jack. I forgot what I poured in here, and some cherry Pepsi Zero to spice things up a little.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's quite delicious. Patriot Challenge, water, reading. I got to get back on the exercise train a little bit more. Although I've been sticking to my diet for the last while, so that's good. Now just
Well,
gotta get the fitness back.
well, that's good, actually. Well, on that note, we'd like usually love to hear from everybody about how they're doing on their fitness projects and programs.
Yeah,
So we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. A version of the show is available on iTunes.
excellent. I guess into the news. This was a big story, although it seems to have kind of fizzled out and turned into nothing. But I guess the other day there was a bit of a to do at the border crossing on the Rainbow Bridge. I was just about to board an airplane in Edmonton flying back to Toronto when this sort of story kind of broke, and everyone was kind of panicking and guessing what was going on. For those that have been living under a rock or listening to this 20 years in the future and don't know what I'm talking about, a car exploded at the border crossing, like right at I guess where the people sit in the little booths there. And immediately everyone kind of jumps to terrorism because it was Thanksgiving weekend on the US side. It was an explosion. There's a whole lot of activity going on in the world with different groups of people hating on one another and bombing the crap out of each other. Um,
Well, we've also seen that happen even recently, like in Ukraine,
yeah,
as they run a truck across the bridge there in Crimea trying to blow it up.
yeah.
So it's not a big stretch of the imagination,
Well,
right?
exactly. And like cars don't generally just explode for no reason, especially at a border crossing on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't
So,
blame people for assuming the worst right off the bat. And actually, again, like I
well,
was a little
and
confused as to make fun of the government because at least they did the right thing by putting a pause on everything for a few minutes, sorting things out.
well, yeah, and yeah, I think the response to this was right. I know some people kind of like, what the hell? And it's like, well, it's better. Like, I'm generally not one for overreacting, but in instances like this, it's fine, right? Like they did the appropriate thing where they shut down that bridge like immediately, and then all of the other ones in the area got shut down immediately. And then like I'm sure every other border crossing in the country was on high alert. And the FBI on the US side showed up, like almost immediately because apparently they've got an office there in Buffalo. I don't know why the hell they would have an office in Buffalo, but I guess they've got one everywhere. So
Yeah, they must have assumed there's some January Sixers there or something that they actually showed up so fast. But
yeah,
like I think it makes sense. I mean, in this day and age, it's not hard to coordinate an attack, and if they were going to do a coordinated thing, it only makes sense to shut down all the bridges. So to be fair, that
yeah,
was a good show. But
yeah. And I mean, I guess as soon as they determined that it is not a terrorist threat, they opened up all of the other bridges, and I'm sure they were all still on high alert and everything for at least a few days, and probably still are. But I mean, the bizarre thing is that we still don't know a whole lot about this. Um, I guess they've named the names. It's two people that live on the US side, and I guess they were supposed to go to a Kiss concert or something like that, and the concert got canceled. So they ended up going to the casino, and then somehow were trying to cross from the US side into the Canadian side, where all of a sudden they were going 100 miles an hour and hit some sort of median and then flew. And if you see the video, man, like you can see that car flying. Like,
some Dukes of Hazard action for
oh
sure.
yeah, like 100 yards through the air, flying into the little hut there, and then like it hits and explodes. So it is a very bizarre turn of events that just, yeah, who knows if we'll ever figure out what actually happened or why.
Yeah, I don't know unless you got really depressed after losing a bunch of money at the casino or something, decided to just end it all there or something. But yeah, just it was because it was a side access road. It wasn't actually the customs
Yeah,
entrance road, right? It was just an adjoining road or an
yeah.
adjacent road. But
So I don't know. It certainly had everyone speculating wildly for a brief moment in time, if nothing else. And yeah, ended up
well,
being,
and of course it gave the CBC opportunity to try and throw some shade at old Pierre Polyev, but that didn't work out so well.
well, yeah. And I mean, it seems that like the mainstream media is taking shots at the right wing media now, like saying, "Oh, well, they immediately said that it was a terrorist attack," and like, well, I think everyone was saying that, or at
Or
least was
we
saying suspected terrorist attack. So like,
Yeah, and I think the only thing Pierre Polyev did is just repeat that there's like the media is reporting, which means he just was reporting what was in the media. And of course, the internet's forever. You can't forget this stuff. And you can certainly track down what people originally said. And CTV was as wrong as anybody saying that there was a suspected terror attack to begin with.
yeah. And I guess I do need to make a correction there. Chris pointed out that electric cars do explode. So yes.
Well, quite randomly, actually, without even going 100 miles an hour.
Yes. Although this was not an electric car. This was like a $300,000 Bentley or something ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, it was not a cheap car.
yeah.
And it wasn't an 80s Pinto either. So, I mean,
No, that would only have been if someone had rear-ended it.
that's right.
Well, I guess more bizarre things happening. A an RCMP vehicle pulled a pit maneuver on a tractor the other day.
That was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that would work. There's a bit of a size disparity there between a cop car and a tractor, but I guess it's good to know that that will work if needed. So there was a convoy of some sort protesting, much like the last few protests have been out west about the whole gender studies and this and that, and keeping that out of the schools. So there was a protest on the keep that stuff out of our school side of it. And this tractor was leading the convoy very slowly down the highway.
Safely even.
Yes, as one would likely do in a tractor on the highway. And I guess the RCMP were not super enthusiastic about this and decided to pit maneuver the tractor, tipping it over into the ditch and sending the guy driving it to the hospital with non-life threatening injuries.
But that's right up there with trampling grannies, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, he's not doing anything. He's not endangering anybody because, again, tractors can only go so fast. If he's just by the side of the road leading a protest convoy, he's not trying to get anybody.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess this is it's not a protest that's in favor with the powers that be. So while it might be okay to occupy railroads and set fire to things and tear down statues and all kinds of things like that when you are protesting things that the establishment is in favor of, or at least perceives that the general population is in favor of, it's fine and they let you get away with that. But
Hmm.
when you are protesting something that doesn't seem to be popular, then all of a sudden, yeah, they will, you know, pit maneuver your tractor, trample you, trample you.
Well, that's what gets me though is
Uh,
like I don't understand how that car just didn't end up underneath the tractor because like you would think that if it's even if it's hitting it sideways or in the rear quarter panel, like doing the
with
usual
those
maneuver.
giant wheels, like, I
Yeah,
mean,
I would think
I
that
don't
physics
know.
alone wouldn't work on that one, but
Apparently it does. I mean, I guess we'll take this as a learning incident, but
he should have just stuck with the killdozer.
yeah. So,
Lower center of gravity is all I'm saying.
well, and yeah, I mean, just so everyone, if you're ever needing to do a very slow moving protest with farm equipment of any kind or construction equipment, the Komatsu bulldozer up armored is your best chance.
Yeah, you're less likely to
Yeah.
get flipped over at least.
Yeah, because I imagine there is even more weight disparity between those things.
Yeah. No, I was actually fairly impressed it worked.
Yeah. But I mean, it just like, and a friend of mine sent me this article. I mean, I was already aware of it, but him and I had had a conversation online with his pro-union communist brother, um, about how like all laws are backed up with violence, and it's the government or their appointees that are the ones that enforce the violence. So here they are basically proving that to be true because I guess they didn't like what this guy is doing, although even though protesting is a protected right, at least according to that piece of paper that's on the wall here right behind me, although it doesn't seem to be worth the paper it's printed on these days.
No.
But I don't know. Just seems kind of odd that they would choose to use violence in this way at this particular moment when it wasn't really called for.
Yeah, not at all. And you know what else wasn't called for?
What, you don't like going on shopping sprees at Versace?
I'm afraid I do not.
Well, I mean, I guess he's got to have something that goes with his two Rolex watches. So Mr. Jagmeet Singh apparently was in Toronto and was spotted doing a little shopping. So he was busted with a Versace bag, which I mean, in and of itself, like who cares? Like if it's his money, spend it how you will. But when you're the one that is out there sort of pandering to the less well-offs and trying to be like the people's politician and champion the little guy that's struggling and all of that, um, kind of doesn't really go so well when you're walking around with Versace bags.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it sort of doesn't really. I mean, I guess it does go well with the brand because I mean, Horvath or whatever her name was there, the one with the kid with the alone tattoo on the stomach, the leader of the Ontario NDP. I mean, she had some fairly expensive clothes that she tried to pass off as office supplies or something. Um, so I guess the fashionable, expensive clothes is part of their brand. They don't want to get caught with that stuff because then
Well,
that's
it's
bad. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like Bernie Sanders with the six houses, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
rules for thee, but not for me. And
Well, I mean, he plans to like eventually redistribute those, right?
well, right around 2025 when he qualifies for retirement, I'm sure he can redistribute his retirement income. And
Well, yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like, I kind of alluded it to it earlier, but this is not the first time that Jagmeet has been busted with premium brands. He does have two Rolex watches. He was even featured in an ad for the Yorkdale Shopping Plaza, which is an expensive, upper level shopping plaza in the Greater Toronto area, where he was wearing his Rolex watch, and as a black and white photo, and the watch is all in gold, highlighting that it is a Rolex. The model, he has two of them, and they go somewhere between 6,000 and 50,000, depending on exactly which one he's got. So he's got at least $12,000 in watches.
yeah, a bit of a champagne socialist for sure.
Yeah. And then so they're not entirely sure what hotel he was staying at either. So he was pictured kind of in front of the Sheraton, which apparently is quite modest at $250 a night. And I would agree, in Toronto right now, that is a pretty reasonable price for a hotel. I'm not saying it's a reasonable price, just that in Toronto, it is a reasonable price. But it's also possible that he was at the Shangri-La nearby, which is $683 a night, or the Park Hyatt, which is like $715 a night, all of which are walking distance from where he was spotted.
Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough when he expenses it.
Yeah, unless he tries to do what the Ontario NDPs do and put that expense in somewhere else, right?
Yeah, $6,000 worth of toilet paper, please.
Yeah. One orange juice. Oh no, that's the conservatives that did the orange juice, but that was
Yeah,
only $6, which is criminal. Don't get me wrong. That is one expensive orange juice, but
just as criminal, but not quite as egregious, shall we say?
yeah. 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 Wow. Um, off to Winnipeg.
Hmm.
So there was a shooting in Winnipeg where there are four victims, two of which are sisters, in West Broadway. So people aren't really sure what was going on, but there was a house where none of the four people that were shot live, and it's sort of a rooming house. The owner of the rooming house, or the owner of the business that owns the house, uh, verified that none of the four victims lived there, and he is not sure why they were there. But the four of them were shot the other day. No idea who did it. They're still trying to piece it all together and figure out what happened, and put this person in jail, as they should. But how long has the pistol freeze been going on?
Yeah, a while.
And I mean, I guess we don't know for sure what it is because the article doesn't say, but we also haven't been able to use our ARs for how long? Almost 3 years, 2.5 years, 3 years.
Turns out
It was
more gun
May
laws
2020. Yeah.
and more gun laws didn't prevent gun crime.
Yeah, it's weird.
Huh. Yeah, that's really weird.
Yeah.
And they didn't really specify if this is like, was it actually kind of a boarding house or just kind of like just a random place where
Well,
it's just
I
party
mean,
type of thing.
I mean, it's referred to as a rooming house. So I mean, I'm looking at a picture here, and it looks like it's a three-story house, not particularly big. It doesn't look completely, you know, dilapidated. It looks reasonably well kept, and it's split up into six apartments. And it looks like next door is sort of like a townhouse, small apartment type complex, and there's some small, you know, small homes around it. So I mean, it doesn't look like a terrible area where one would think that it's like I just got out of jail and I need a place to stay kind of a place.
Yeah, it's very sus, that's for sure.
But I mean, the fact that there are six apartments inside of what appears to be a small three-story house. I mean, three stories makes it sound massive, but like the third story is the attic, so whoever's up there is not got a whole lot of space. So it certainly is lower income housing.
Yeah, and I mean, bound to, with low income, and of course, bound to be some substance abuse floating around at some point, right?
Yeah, that and I mean the people don't seem to make a whole lot of sense. So there's the two sisters, there's 34 and 41. One died on the scene or whatever, one died after. And then there's like a 55-year-old man. So it's a sort of, I mean, not that, I mean, I have friends that are quite an age range, but just, yeah, it seems odd group of people hanging out together and whatnot. And why are they all were there and how they got shot.
I don't know, man.
But, I don't want to make light of it. I mean, whatever happened is tragic and should never have happened. And I really hope that they catch the person, but, they keep pushing these gun laws and all of this, but then this kind of stuff keeps happening. So clearly, whatever they're doing isn't working.
Well, clearly criminals don't follow laws,
Yeah,
strangely enough.
yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Super weird. Well, we got some more government shenanigans. Bill C-58, the government's new anti-replacement worker legislation. It is the anti-scab legislation by the labor movement. They hail it as a major victory. So the other week, they introduced this new legislation, which is aimed at banning the practice of employers bringing in replacement workers during a contract dispute. So because this is at the federal level, this only covers federally regulated industries. And the bill has two main components. The first makes it illegal for employers in federally regulated industries, to bring in replacement workers to continue operations previously executed by unionized employees during a legal strike or lockout. So banking, telecommunications, and so on and so forth.
Well,
The bill also sets out penalties for breaking the rules of $100,000 a day for employers, but it has some exceptions, such as for non-unionized contractors hired before notice of a lockout or strike, or in cases where there could be a threat to health and safety, property, or the environment. The second part of the bill details new process for what are called maintenance of activities agreements. These new rules force unions and employers to negotiate early in the bargaining process, within 15 days of a notice of strike or lockout, and which services would continue in the event of a dispute. If they can't agree, the matter gets referred to the Canadian Industrial Relations Board for a decision within 90 days.
so in other words, that's just a good way to delay a strike too.
Yes.
So, okay, millions of questions on this one. So I guess the big workaround would be I'd hire a bunch of workers like, the day before I was expecting some strike notice to be given, in which case still got your scabs. But federally regulated, like I'm federally regulated, and a lot of our friends are too. And I'm just trying to think of that. Most of those jobs require at least some form of training to do that job, right? And it's not just like a couple days worth.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how has this been a problem up until recently? Like for the most part, if these people go on strike, usually you can't replace them just overnight with like minimum wage people.
Well, exactly, right? Like, I mean, look at the thing. So banking, yeah, you kind of like need some information and stuff like that to be in a bank role.
Even a teller, like I mean, a
Well,
teller.
exactly, right? Like they need some training, like, and some level of trust. I imagine there's some background checks and things that are done. So it's not like they could hire people quickly for those positions, nor would you want them to,
Yeah,
right?
like
And
that's
like telecommunications. So again, like, what are you like? Are you talking about a lineman? Because like, there's a bunch of technical know-how that those guys need, or even somebody on the switchboard there takes some training, and it just
yeah, like I mean, but even like technically law enforcement can't go on strike, but I mean, like there's lots of other federally regulated
yeah,
transportation, rail workers, everything else,
yeah.
that you can't just throw a guy in a train and say, hey, go take this one to Vancouver, would you?
Well, exactly, right? Like, there's
So,
all kinds of things that would happen that just wouldn't work. Like
so I
that
just
you
was this like the whole thing just a virtue signaling exercise, or was this?
I think it was. I mean, because like, yeah, when was the last time any of those industries actually went on like a major strike and scabs were brought in for those positions? Like,
Because like
has that ever happened?
Well, because like remember, it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we had that rail strike where they were the Quebec
Yeah,
was almost out of propane and stuff. And what happened ended up happening was the upper management just ended up running as many trains as they could, just to get minimum amounts of propane to
yeah.
Quebec just in time, and that was it. And they didn't bring any replacement workers in anyway. So
Well, yeah, like because you couldn't. I mean, and some would be even more ridiculous, right? Like, I mean, I guess I don't know. Was that this would be more at the provincial level, but when they had the QP strike or whatever not too long ago, and the employees in Petawawa that ran the water and electricity stuff that were part of QP for some reason were not doing their thing. So I guess it would prevent something like that from happening because you would say, okay, no, like, I get it, you want to strike to get your what you think you're owed, but like, bro, these people aren't going to have like electricity or water. You can't do that.
yeah, so maintenance of
So
activities
that
clause would
part
come in.
seems reasonable.
Yeah,
And I mean, enforcing them to actually have a conversation and try to do that, I mean, is sort of reasonable so that you don't just get, ridiculous deadlocks over things that are just like, no, like, come on, like, you have to be negotiating. But also, why does the government have to step in and tell everyone how to do their thing all the time? I mean,
yeah, I would think this could be settled without legislation myself, but what do I know? Just a
yeah,
dude.
but yeah, I don't think that this was anything where this has been like a massive problem because yeah, like, none of these industries are just bringing in people off the street to fill positions. Like, this is not a warehouse where you could pick people off the street to come in and pick parts with minimal training. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
imagine they just like, I mean, it's already bad enough that some of the, qualifications for these industries are going away, but can you imagine just bringing anyone in off the streets for any of these? Like, it would be a nightmare.
yeah. I don't think it'll be fine. It'd be quite disastrous. But actually, on well related to this one, speaking of like useless legislation that doesn't do anything, this next one kind of gets me going too. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is at the provincial side of it, but Ontario to ban employers from asking for Canadian work experience. It,
so if you're like, and again, like it depends on what industry you talk about. Like, I mean, a 7-Eleven cashier does not need previous Canadian work experience. As an employer, I wouldn't be asking for it anyway.
well, and it's so ridiculous too, because if someone's giving you a resume, it's usually going to tell you where the place that they worked was.
Or currently work at. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I have never once, well, okay, that is a lie. Because I once had a resume where the guy didn't have anything other than his name and not even a full name. It was like a first name, a phone number, and then not a list of places he has worked, but jobs that he has done. So it's like automotive upholsterer, not where he did it, just automotive upholsterer. And then like a list of things like that. So he did not tell me where those were, like what the employer was, let alone what country that or province or city it was on. But every other resume I've ever seen has always had the name of the business, when they worked there, what their position was, like where it was located in the world, and like a list of their key responsibilities. That is every other resume I have seen.
Yeah, instead of just saying Fred, street sweeper. But
Yeah,
yeah, like I just don't understand. Like, because again, if you got a resume coming across your desk and a suspect, and you can't really,
yeah,
they reconcile their experience level or their qualifications, you just toss it in the trash. You wouldn't even bother
absolutely.
asking. You
Well,
just there's
and
so many other resumes, right?
yeah, and when you go, okay, great. This looks fantastic. Can I have some of the phone numbers of these places to check your references? Am I allowed to do that now? Because that's going to give away where these places are.
Yeah, country code 66, and
Yeah, yeah. It's a plus 66 dash zero. You're like,
Hmm.
okay, so somewhere in the yeah, it's it's going to be so obvious when they give you all of the phone numbers or like some way to contact these people. I mean, even if they just use like a cell phone app or whatever, like when you try to get a hold of them, you're going to want some information. And it's going to be pretty obvious if they pick up the phone and they're not speaking English.
Yeah, I just don't know what they're trying to accomplish with this one at all.
I,
it
I
wasn't a
mean,
problem to begin with, but
I get what they're trying to do, and they're trying to eliminate racism and things like that. But like, it this isn't going to do that because obviously at some point you're going to have to physically see the person. Well, maybe not if you're hiring based just like purely off of Skype or whatever or Zoom and don't plan to ever have them come into the office because they work remotely. But I'm sure that for a lot of them, you can kind of look at their name or I don't know where they went to school and a bunch of other things and more or less figure out generally at least where in the world this person is from.
yeah,
And
just
much like all the other protected things, there's ways around that by asking unrelated but related questions and piecing it all together. Like I'm not allowed to ask how old somebody is. All I'm allowed to ask is that, like, are you between the ages of this and this where you're legally allowed to work in the country or the province? But most people put down what year they graduated school at. So,
it is a matter of math. Yeah.
yeah, you can generally figure it out, plus or minus a few years. Maybe they were really smart and skipped a grade, or maybe they were really dumb and were held back a few. But like,
Which will be apparent soon enough, right?
yeah, but plus or minus 5 years, you could probably guess where somebody is in the age spectrum there and everything else. So like, yeah, this just seems ridiculous, and it seems even more ridiculous that it's the conservatives, in air quotes for that one, especially lately with these guys, that is pushing this forward.
Yeah. Do we actually have a conservative party in Canada anywhere?
No, that's just slightly less spendy. Not a lot less spendy, just slightly less spendy. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Speaking of
Much,
ridiculous.
yeah, much like this. There seems to be a theme,
Yeah.
although the theme extends to sadly not just this episode, but all episodes. Who the 500,000 immigrants headed to Canada, or who are they? A look at the numbers. Uh, so Canada is set to welcome nearly 1.5 million new permanent residents over the next 3 years, according to the new targets recently announced by Immigration Minister Mark Miller. Canada does not foresee a cut to immigration levels and plans to hold its target of annual newcomers steady at 500,000 people starting in 2026. So, according to the plans tabled in Parliament by Miller, a closer look at the date and breakdown by categories can give an idea of who these new immigrants headed to Canada will be. So,
Well, that'll help the housing crisis for one, but
yes. So my favorite piece of this is where is it here? So the plan to maintains previously so it plans to previously set targets welcoming 485,000 new permanent residents in 2024, 500,000 new permanent residents in 2025, and then that number again in 2026. And stabilize. To me, that already sounds pretty stabilized because it's been effectively the same number for 3 years. But who knows what they mean by this? Maybe that means they're going to up it. But it allows them time for successful integration as well as sustainable population growth.
Yeah, nothing remotely sustainable about that, but
Nor is this giving them time to successfully integrate because that is not happening already.
so what's your version or what's your definition of economic migrant?
I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it all, but I mean, to me, it would be somebody that is trying to come here to better their life, but has some sort of skill that is required.
Like, I would
But
hope that
that's probably
it's,
not what they mean.
yeah, I would hope it's highly skilled,
Yeah.
immigrants that they
Well,
would contribute and have a net contribution to the economy. However, is it economic migrants could just mean they're shopping around for the best country for the best gimme dads, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
they
I would
wait
hope that it's somewhere along the lines of I have a particular set of skills that are in need.
yeah, Liam Neeson style. But
Yeah.
I mean, they're not coming here for the tax breaks. We know that. But I mean, like,
Well, they
um,
might be.
well, I don't know what has higher taxes than us at this point. I mean, but
No, I just
those
mean that they may not have to pay higher taxes. They
well,
may be, yeah,
that's true. But yeah, so like very interesting how they just classify it as economic migration. It's like, well, if you think you're coming to a better economy, does that count? If it does, are you a
yeah,
skilled labor or like I just don't understand how
yeah.
they. It's a pretty generic term.
Yeah. But yeah, the four categories they have, yeah, economic, family reunification, refugees, and protected persons. Well, and I guess there's one listed as humanitarian, compassionate, and others. So,
Kind of the same as a refugee.
and I would imagine that the protected persons would also fall under the refugee category and humanitarian, compassionate, and others.
Correct. And family is not necessarily a net economic driver as well. So you're talking almost half, well, at least
Yeah.
I'd say 40% of the immigrants coming are not planning at all right away to contribute to the economy.
Yeah. That's kind of
So
how I read this. And like, okay, the family reunification thing, like if we've let one family member in, it's kind of hard to not let some of the others depending on the relationship. So if you let in the husband or wife or mother or father into the country, then letting the other spouse or parent in kind of makes sense, so long as the one that is in the country is economically able to support that person, right? Like if I move to here to work hard to make money to support my family, and I've proven that I can do that, and that I could support them financially because I'm stable on my own 2 feet. Sure.
yeah, but unfortunately, on a ratio of about 2 to 1 in this article, it shows that spouses, partners, and children are on one side, but
Yeah.
parents and grandparents who didn't contribute to the economy but yet will be a net drain on the Medicare system and everything else are coming in at least half the time as well. So I mean, it's 84,000 to
And that's
34,000,
the
right?
problem, right? Like, and again, I mean, if I wouldn't have a problem with it so much if it was okay, you're allowed to move to the country, but your kids are 100% responsible for your fiscal requirements. Like, You didn't pay into the system. We know that you're going to use it. Yeah, you want to live here, fine, but your kids are footing the bill for it. You don't get health care, you don't get to vote, you don't get this, you can live here, but you don't get access to the programs. Then I would be okay with it,
But
but
yeah,
that's not the case. And like, I can't really, shit too hard on the whole refugee thing because again, like my father did come to this country as one, but like, how do we have refugees protected persons, which we all know what that means, and then humanitarian compassion and others as all separate categories? Like that's just a way to go, oh no, this isn't part of our protected persons category, this is part of the refugee one. So you fill up that box and then go, oh well, they're protected persons, so they go in this other one. So like if you're a woman, a child, elderly, a minority of some kind, you're going to fall into basically any of those categories.
yeah.
The only people that are not going to fall into that are like cis hetero white men. Sorry, European.
Well,
Like,
screw
yeah,
those guys anyway, right?
yeah. You're not
But
going to get any of that. Maybe the economic one, but that's probably going to be the smallest category, and they'll make you jump through a million hoops to prove it. I mean, my cousin years ago tried to come here to visit, and he's got his PhD in marine biology, and they were like, "Yeah, we're too worried that you're going to stay, so no, we won't even give you like a temporary visitor visa." Even though like we had to sign documents that said like we will pay for everything. Like if he and it had to include like if he gets injured, we will pay his medical bills. And this is how we will be able to afford it. They're still like, nah, too risky.
which is bizarre,
Yeah.
just bizarre.
Because we'd be so much worse off if he came and decided to stay.
Yeah, because he's educated and probably has
Yeah.
a work ethic. So
Yeah. But
interestingly
insane.
enough, they're trying to force French speaking people outside of Quebec. You think if they wanted to bolster the language stability there, that they would try and keep all the French speakers in Quebec.
Yeah, one would think, but maybe they're trying to get a larger presence of the Bloc Québécois party outside of the province.
I don't know. They take votes away from liberals. I'd be
Yeah.
I don't know what their plan is with all that, but yeah, the whole thing doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I'm just reading a little bit more here. The economic category is broken into several subcategories, with the largest number being assigned to the provincial nominee program. Under this program, the provinces can issue invitations to new immigrants to live there based on their specific labor requirements.
Which again, if there was a job available, the person would go there anyway.
Yeah, so in 2024, 110,000 new immigrants will be welcomed under this program. So my guess is that like the economic one is basically going to be all that
Yeah.
program. Or there's the Atlantic Immigration Program, which promotes settlements in Canada's four Atlantic province. They'll welcome 6,500 people. Well, immigrants under the federal high skilled program will make up 110,000. So they're trying to make it look like it's this, but we all know that that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a target, not a hard number, right?
yeah, we know that the other ones, because especially the protected ones, because like if it comes down to it, and like we coming close to these numbers, and like, oh, but I guess we can't cap these protected people, so we'll just keep letting them in. If we need to take away from some of the other categories, we can.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no way you're guaranteed to get all these skilled laborers right to the numbers they want, right?
Yeah, because if people are smart, why the hell would they want to come here?
No, especially when there's friendlier tax climes just a little bit further south. But
Yeah, or in much warmer places, like some of the islands.
yeah,
where you don't have to pay taxes at all.
Strange, strange.
Wow. Well, I guess the last one here, with millions of mortgages coming due, finance minister expects banks to work with Canadians.
Well, they better, because they're screwed otherwise. Um,
Oh,
yeah, like I guess
well,
I was actually just watching a video on this the other day. So I guess the States is a little different. The fact that people could technically sign on a 30-year mortgage at 3% or whatever, and so the bank was, basically getting money in at 3% of the dollar, and yet they're having to pay out for bonds at 6% of the dollar here, and they're losing money with every active mortgage. But it's not quite the case in Canada, because of course every 5 years with the amortization period or whatever we renew.
yeah.
But another problem is that you've got a bunch of people who, thanks to the higher interest rates, can't make their payments, but they're going to try and sell their house in a market that's stagnant at best. For the lack of a better term, nobody can afford the price of the house that
Yeah.
the bank would expect to get because the payments would be too high. So they're going to not get the collateral out of it. It's yeah,
Well,
it's kind of a house of
yeah.
cards right now, right?
Well, that or I mean, and this is the thing that I'm kind of worried about is that they'll instead of raising your monthly payment, they just tack it on the back end. So you just have infinity mortgage payments, right? Because it's like, oh well, I can keep affording the whatever it is, $1,500 a month or whatever your payments are, right?
Yeah,
But instead of like 30 years, it's now going to be infinity years, and you're going to just keep paying it because they
well, yeah,
fucked you.
because I mean, Europe had generational mortgages for a while that were like 70-year mortgages or whatever. That's fine. That's their jam, I guess. But
Yeah,
yeah, this negative amortization thing, they're just going to tack
yeah,
on interest payments to your principal, so your principal actually increases every year. It's
yeah,
like, uh, it's
yeah.
just
That's it's not really working with you. Like,
no. At some point, that somebody's just going to walk away from that and be like, well, that's your problem now, like, but
yeah. Well, exactly, right? Like you could buy your house at 0 years old, right? Your parents think ahead and buy a property and put it in your name and pay the mortgage payments for you until you are old enough to legally be in possession of the house, and then you take over. And you will not pay off your house in your lifetime because they will keep doing this and it'll just keep getting tacked on to the back end.
yeah, it's just
And
it's not a solution at all. That all that it is at best, it's kicking the can further down the road. But in reality, it's just setting up
yeah,
for some massive
well,
default,
you're
tsunami,
supposed to,
right?
yeah, you're supposed to be paying off a mortgage so that you can own the place, but instead you're basically just paying rent because you'll never actually own it. And then even
Yeah,
when you die, like, what are you going to do?
and
Pass
that's the
that
thing.
on to somebody else who gets stuck doing the same thing?
Yeah, it's not even like a reverse mortgage where at least like you get a little bit of money out of your house every month until you die, and then there's a lien against it, and then whatever's left over is your family
Yeah.
gets. But this is beyond that. This is like your family actually owes more. Like that's setting up
Well,
the
yeah,
next
because
generation for
they'll have
success,
to pay the inheritance tax on whatever value of the house you've paid so far.
which is I
Yeah. Yeah,
there's just there's
you
no.
won't be able to afford to keep it, but you won't be able to afford to sell it either. It'll be the ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah, so I don't even know who's more to blame, the person that actually signs on to something like that versus going personally
Yeah.
bankrupt, or the banks for even suggesting that, because that's just criminal at best.
Yeah.
Like I just
Well, yeah, apparently there's the new mortgage charter, which isn't binding, but Freeland believes that lenders will follow it. Why would anyone follow anything that they are not obligated to follow?
yeah.
I mean, although I guess maybe like the whole, masking mandate thing proved that people will follow things that they don't have to actually follow because it's not really a law, but it was a law, but it's not a law. But you should do it anyways. And if you don't do it, we're going to make it a law to force you to do it.
Well, and I think that's what happens when you get a journalism major as a finance minister too, that you know she expects people to live in Delulu land like she does, but
Well, that's okay. We'll just all cancel our Disney Plus subscriptions and
that
everything will be fine. Yeah.
that should fix it, right?
Yeah, the $10 a month or whatever, that'll totally fix my mortgage payments.
Or we should just fight for 20 now or something, because that'll fix everything too, right?
Well, I'd for 20,000 or something like that is what it's going to turn into. That's the only way we'll be
Yeah.
able to afford it. But then I guess that's not going to work either. But I just I get that like politicians get put into roles based on politics, not necessarily skill. But I don't think we've ever had a less qualified finance minister. Like the only person I think that would be less qualified than her is Trudeau.
Yep.
And he can't be the minister of finance because he's the prime minister. Like,
Yeah.
I
And the
just
funny thing is, the only one that actually had any sort of financial sense was kind of ushered out the door, due to a scandal. So, I mean, and you watch, they'll
yeah.
try and get Carney back in as the former Bank of the England administrator there to save the day, so to speak. But
Yeah. Well, like I mean, apparently this whole thing is causing anxiety among homeowners. Uh, and some who have told the CBC that they expect to make significant lifestyle changes to accommodate the higher cost. Yeah, like not eating.
or maybe they shouldn't have bought too much house for their income to begin with, right? Like there,
Or that.
a lot of people like were right at the stress test limit when they bought this place at 2%. So now it's 6%
Yeah.
they're underwater, and well, that's just shitty life choices because you're living for the show, right? Versus actually living within your means.
Well, yeah, they're expecting at the sort of next sort of renewal there to be 30 to 40% above what it is now, which is insane.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe if the government stopped sending our money to other places in the world and just printing it like crazy, maybe we would be in the situation where the banks have to step in and do dumb things and raise interest rates and do this, that, and everything else to help with the inflation problems, which is caused by the government doing dumb things.
So maybe this Marxist, modern Marxist monetary theory didn't work out so well. The inflating the debt away didn't work.
Well, that they just need to stop, or they just need to like kick into hyperdrive and have like super hyperinflation so that like I can pay off what's left on the house on what it would cost me to go to the store and buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah, just no big deal. But if it's
Yeah.
digital, it's so much easier. You don't have to use wheelbarrows to carry the cash. You can just add
Well,
zeros.
exactly, right? Or they just like print new bills where it's like 1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. And then you just go, here you go.
Yeah, there you go. There's your mortgage.
I paid off my house, keep the change.
Oh, honkity honk.
Yeah. I can't stand this Freeland lady. And I don't ever claim to be the most well-versed person when it comes to fiscal stuff. I mean, I run a business, so I have a basic understanding of how the economy works. Not an economist by any means. Those guys are generally way smarter than I am. Although the only thing I've really learned from an economist is that whatever they say is going to happen is the one thing that isn't going to happen.
Pretty much, yeah. Well,
But
your principal amount on your mortgage is going down every month, so it instantly makes you more qualified than these people are talking about. So
yeah, for now, anyways, yeah,
yeah.
for now, yeah, I can't stand her, and she's just like quite literally the least qualified person. Like I said, other than Trudeau, who thinks that the budget will balance itself. At least she hasn't gone and said anything stupid like that. But
Well, she
probably
said plenty of
because
stupid things.
yeah, she's just not that stupid. But that's probably because he already said it.
Yeah. The Disney Plus was a close second though.
Yeah, $12 a month is gonna save me. I can't like I can't even buy lettuce for that. Like
No, I honestly don't think you could buy a 3-pack of romaine for that, can you?
no, and who eats any other kind of lettuce? Like that's not even my week's worth of lettuce.
Yeah.
It's 4 weeks in a month. So like, great. What I gotta cancel my Netflix and my Crave and Prime as well. And what am I gonna watch?
More political commentary, maybe
CPAC,
CPAC Live.
CPAC. That's
CPAC
all I'll be
Live.
able to watch live. Just get more enraged all
Yeah.
day. Just,
Just just
rah.
just remember they shouldn't call it question period. Well, they do call it question period because that's all they do is ask questions. They never answer it. They don't call it
Yeah.
answer period. So
No, I still with Andrew on this one where like if they don't answer the question within X number of like times being asked it, Like the speaker should be able to get up, go and pick up the mace, and then smash them about the head and shoulders with it until they answer the question.
Just make it easier. Just have them all hooked up to like some sort of electrodes in their seat, and then just he could just like Doctor Evil
Yeah,
it and zap
I
them
mean
with
that
it.
would be more efficient,
Yeah,
but not nearly as entertaining. Maybe it's like a tiered process where it's like the zap for the first couple of times, and then the being hit about the head and shoulders with the giant mace,
yeah, old school, absolutely.
right? Like if getting like a shock up the taint doesn't like Cheeto would probably like it, but
Yeah, but gets your attention nonetheless.
yeah, ugh, ridiculous. Well, yeah, Ian, when you're not doing the show, where can people find you?
Well, generally, since I'm pretty much banned everywhere, the only place you can find me other than here is on Canadian Prepper Podcast. Occasionally, I'm there Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, and I think they still do it on Facebook. I don't know why. Other than that, you can email me directly at theislandretreat@gmail.com.
Excellent. You can find me on the Instagram, SuckerbeXGTA. You can also find the show on Gilded, apparently. We have a thing there. I'd like to say I use it, but I don't. I try, but
It's the one place I can go.
yeah, it's the one place I don't.
Yeah.
But you can interact with some of the people there. Younger Andrew, or better Andrew, as some would call him. He's on there quite frequently, and some of the other listeners and so on. So hang out there. We do try to post when we're doing like get-togethers and stuff like that. So maybe we'll have to do like a Yule drinking fest at some point because that's coming up. Also, they announced the dates for the next Resuel for next year. So it's 5 months and some number of days away. So start getting in shape.
Ooh, we'll have to put that up next week, I guess.
Oh yeah. If you've listened to the show this long, you definitely deserve a discount at ragnaroktactical.ca. So go there, check us out. Use the code Patriot at checkout to save yourself a few dollars. So that way, at least if you're going to buy something, you won't have to cancel your Disney subscription for this month in order to afford the thing that you're buying. Medical supplies make great stocking stuffers. So,
Just saying.
yeah. Apologies to Rod. He couldn't make it this week. Not really sure why. Maybe he was also enraged at Freeland and was just too busy screaming into the void to be able to make it. I know we all feel like doing it sometimes. But, short of that, remember, you are a small fringe minority with unacceptable views.